Now let's move on to Fernande van Tets, France 24's correspondent, who's currently in The Hague and watching, covering the proceedings this Friday. Fernande, remind us, so what exactly did the judges decide?
So the most important thing they decided was not to impose a ceasefire. That is, of course, the provisional measure that has been spoken most about in the lead up to this decision. The big thing that everyone was wondering whether this court would call for it. And halt to operations, as South Africa had asked for. Many international law experts thought that would be a stretch too far, but a temporary ceasefire, maybe. Now, that did not come back in these provisional measures. What we did hear from the judges, and they were pretty strong in the lead up, that this court had jurisdiction, that there is a valid case between these two countries, and that the cause of irreparable harm to the Palestinian population, if they did not impose provisional measures right now, was very real, was plausible. And so they have granted provisional measures, the most important of which is, of course, the access to humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people. Actually, even Ehud Barak, the judge that was sent by Israel to join the bench, he also voted for this, and also an end in prosecution to incitement to genocide. Now, the court read out some statements from Israeli officials. Of course, that famous quote by the defense minister Gallant, calling the people of Palestine inhumane, that they were animals. And this is also something that Ehud Barak, the Israeli judge, also agreed on, that this should be punished. And of course, the Attorney General in Israel has said earlier this week that they are going to be punishing that kind of language. But the big one that we were hoping for, that what many people here were hoping for, outside here you can hear people screaming ceasefire now, protesters, that did not come down. However, the court was very critical of the humanitarian situation in the Gaza Strip. It said that the Palestinian population, it repeated those numbers, more than 25,000 people killed, almost everyone, the vast majority, having been displaced. They did see them as a group, but of course this case, not yet about the merits, about whether genocide is being committed. That is something that will take years going forward. But these preliminary measures did come down, and there should be more humanitarian aid going to the Palestinian people if it is up to this court, and Israel will have to report on what measures it has taken in 1 month's time.
Fernanda, remind us now, what is coming up next? Now that this decision has been made, what are the next steps for the ICJ?
So the ICJ has now put out this ruling. As I said, in 1 month's time, Israel will have to come back and report to the court on what measures it has taken to make sure that there is more humanitarian aid going to the Palestinian people of Gaza. Also, that pregnant mothers are able to give birth. Of course, many hospitals have been destroyed, a lot of civilian infrastructure. That is something that they also mentioned, because that potentially violates the Genocide Convention, the right to giving birth to new people. That is something they specifically mentioned Israel should improve upon. Also, the collecting of evidence. Israel should preserve evidence that could be used in prosecuting any crimes of genocide, any acts of genocide, the ending, of course, of that incitement. But yes, whether Israel chooses to abide by this, we'll have to see. If you look at precedent, in 2004, this court ruled that Israel should break down barriers that they'd constructed in the West Bank. To this day, those remain standing. Israel had been very clear in the run-up that they would not necessarily abide by an order for a ceasefire. However, for more humanitarian access, it has been unclear. So we'll have to see how Israel responds. As the previous speaker said, international pressure is likely to increase on Israel to abide by these measures. The court said itself that it cannot enforce these measures, but they are legally binding. Now, the only forum that can really enforce them is the UN Security Council. Of course, the United States has a veto right there, which in the past it has threatened to use in favor of Israel. But this is an international court. Its rulings do carry weight, and it will come with international pressure to abide by these provisional measures, and I think especially the one on providing more humanitarian aid to the Palestinian people.
Thank you so much. Fernande van Tets reporting there in the aftermath of that decision.